Altitude. Altitude.
Request refueling. Request
Copy.
rearming.
Copy. Refueling complete. Rearming complete.
Excellent work. We now control Sukumi. You can now spawn there. Rearm and move on to the next base. Intelligence report. A pair of jammers have been located northwest of Nalchik. Take them out to improve our coverage in that area.
Altitude. Altitude.
We're making progress. We just took over Gudada. You can now spawn there. Intel just in. Flankers are taking off from the enemy carrier. Location southwest of Anapa. Take out the enemy fleet as soon as you can.
Request refueling. Request
Copy.
rearming.
Copy. Arming complete.
Good work. We have captured Sachi. You can now spawn there. Intel just received. SA-5 SAM site has been spotted deploying northeast of Sukumi. Take it out ASAP. Good job. Friendly ground units have moved in on Beslan. Friendlies can now spawn there. Rearmen move on to the next base.
Altitude. Altitude.
Request refueling. Request
Copy.
rearming.
Copy.
Biome look really dense, so we pushed the amount of acids that we're using, so it's basically completely covered in foliage. Compared to Hurston, for example, Hurston and Microtech, which are way denser. The good thing is that we don't have any trees here, so all the budget we can use on ground cover, on grass. Now we jump to a Pyro coast biome. The improvements we got to the coast biomes is that we can now use a OPR override for every single biome. Previously, we could only use one global override per planet, which, as you can imagine, is not enough when you have something like Stanton 4, where you have snowy regions and the spruce tree regions, and one object preset just can't cover every coast. We added these coral, like coral geology set to have some of the yellow also along the coast. So you see here, we always have like a little bit of yellow coming through, and eventually it transitions into the nice mossy areas. Previously, when we made coast object presets, we played it a bit safe and only used 1 or 2 acid sets. But due to the fact that we can now push the density along the coast as well, you can find different kinds of coral, seaweed, different pebbles and rocks, and other stuff. Now I jump to one
Refueling
of the volcanic
complete.
regions on Pyro 3. You might not expect to find vegetation here, but we did add a little bit of vegetation to this region to make it a bit more interesting. What I want to highlight here is the quality bar that we set for ourselves when it comes to improving the look of our vegetation. So this is one of my favorite new vegetation sets that we created. You can see the amount of detail on display. Here we have like nice little flowers and these like
Rearming
knots
complete.
or whatever, like pots. And it's just like a really cool asset set. So when flying over the volcanic regions, you will find pockets of these scattered all around, just to make the area like a little bit more lively. Before we move on, let's jump around to a couple more places. Now we're on Pyro 4, which is my personal favorite of the Pyro system. Yeah, just full disclosure, you can probably tell that the clouds here are not done yet. They do look a bit busted, but yeah, they will look amazing once the planet comes out. So let's focus on the terrain shapes. We created some of these terrain shapes special for Pyro 4 because it's loosely inspired by like Scottish Highlands. So there's not a lot of like verticality, not a lot of trees, so everything is kind of coming from the terrain and from the smaller assets that we scatter on the terrain geometry. So jumping in game, and then you can see the amount of ground cover assets on display, the variation in color, but it's all grounded by like the color of the soil, and it just looks like we have so first of all, we have this bush set here, which is called, I think it's called a fire stalk, which, yeah, it's kind of like a modified version of the real world thing. They add like a little bit of color to the area and make things pop. Then we have ones here, I forgot the name of the asset set. Yeah, they also look quite saturated and interesting. We also try to improve the quality of our tree sets. If you compare like the trees that we have on Hurston to these ones, the geometry count is way higher, the texture resolution is a bit higher, and they just look more polished and nicer, which means that eventually we have to go back to Hurston, to Microtech, and give the trees there like a little makeover. So what was really important for us was to improve the blending between different biomes. So you see here, these are two fairly simple biomes. There's a clear distinction between them, but the transition still feels very natural. So if we go down here, you have like the red grass and it kind of feathers out. Yeah, it feels very organic and natural. Let's jump to the most experimental biome that we've made so far. So for this biome here, the concept art team gave us some really interesting concept art, because this is easily some of the biggest rock formations that we have in the game so far. Actually, let me try to fly so you can see the scale of them. Massive in scale, and what was the hardest part about getting these to look right is that they're supposed to look really good from a distance, because you would expect something this big to be visible almost from space. But then the tricky thing is also to make them look good when you're standing up close to them. Let me jump in game so you see how big these rocks actually are. So they are massive in scale. Massive in scale. You can probably land your spaceship on them and walk on them, and they make you feel like really small. But I think it's a really good visual that you have these like dark gray rocks against the crimson of the soil and the grass. So here's a little happy accident where we have the volumetric clouds covering the terrain. Volumetric clouds. Yeah, you can probably spot some of the tiling issues that we have here, which is something that we still need to look at. But like I said before, this is still work in progress, so it's gonna change a bit. Because I mentioned biome diversity along the coasts before, I just wanted to highlight what one of the coast biomes on Pyro 4 looks like. So this one is kind of this wet sand. We scattered some of the seaweed, some of these lava plates, and some of these pebbles, and then we also get like nice seaweed moving with the waves of the ocean. One interesting thing on Pyro 4 is that we have a massive crater region. On other planets we have individual craters which are a whole height map, or like 3-4 smaller craters on one height map, but this is actually multiple height maps forming one large crater. And you can see it all the way out in space. Like this whole region is one big crater, so it's a mix of like the global displacement texture and then the height maps of the ecosystems spawning on top, plus the volumetric clouds make it look really epic here. Now we've flown down to the surface of the crater. We wanted this to feel very spooky and grim and kind of dark, so we have these dark fantasy forest looking trees, which look kind of creepy. Then we bring some of the red grass back from the previous biome. We go down to the surface of the crater. You can see that we added this dark forest looking tree set, some creepy shapes, some moist looking ground cover assets, and this whole area is supposed to make you feel a bit uneasy. It's supposed to be hostile, and it's not safe without your suit on. So far we looked at 4 of the Pyro planets, so let's switch it up and look at one of the moons. This one is Pyro 5C. similar to Pyro 4, you can see that it has a landmark that you can see from space. In this case, it's not a crater, but it's like, yeah, like a long streak of slick obsidian. So let's fly down to the surface of the streak and have a look what it looks like from up close. Again, we start with like the global height map where there's like a little bit of a bump up, and then it goes down to form the crack, and then we scatter the ecosystem height maps on top to get the look that we want. So if we go down here, you can see we start with like flatland shapes, some smaller craters, and then it transitions into like these quite spiky looking mountain formations. And then down here they feather into like these longer ridges of bedrock before it becomes smooth down here. And if we jump to this point, which is a really cool spot because like the sun just hits the obsidian in the right way and everything looks like nice and shiny. You can see here that the ground looks quite different from other planets. So instead of soil, it almost looks artificial in a way. Acid-wise, we're using one of our obsidian sets that you can also find on Stanton 4. This one got a bit of an update, a bit of polish, so we improved the shapes, different textures just to make it look extra cool, like the way the sunlight hits these surfaces. To make this area a bit more interesting, we decided to add some of these white light gray shrubs, just so the area doesn't feel too samey, and it's always nice to have like the occasional pocket of vegetation. To set the obsidian biome apart from the rest of the planet, we went with the opposite route for these biomes here. So instead of being shiny and slick, they are more dry, covered in dry sand. The vegetation is dry. We added some of these spiky shapes to add some verticality to the scattering. But yeah, outside the obsidian crack, this is what you will find on the planet most of the time. So this go-to point I picked to show some of the subtle color that we added to Pyro 5C. So the obsidian crack is like kind of just dark gray, black. The desert I just showed is also light gray. So we felt this needed a bit of a color breakup. So we added some of these red hues to the occasional biome. It's very rocky. You also find the red sand on the rocks from the biome accumulation, and it looks really nice how the red creeps up into the crevices of the height maps in the background. We're going to end our showcase today on Pyro 6. Pyro 6 has a very interesting color palette. Like, I really like the yellows and the pale beige tones of the terrain. And then you have another blue ocean. As you can see, the terrain is kind of ridden by craters, and we get these really cool shapes where the ocean fills in those craters. If we jump all the way down to the edge of one of those craters, so now we're at the edge of one of those craters. I'm jumping in game right now just to show you what it feels like walking along here. You can see that we added some dramatic looking coral shapes, and then eventually you walk down here towards one of those craters that's filled with water. We have a couple of floating meshes here on the left. This is still work in progress, so one of us, probably me, has to go in and adjust the settings of the spawning here, and then we're right at the edge. And I really like the color of the water and how it looks against the backdrop of the white chalky terrain. Then over here mesh. His name is Rüdiger, and he's super helpful when we set up object presets, because you can immediately see how the scale of assets feel when you have him in situation. Like, he adds context to the scene. He spawns every time that object preset spawns, and yeah, he helps us find the right values when it comes to the scale of our assets. In general, this biome here is another good example of how our ground textures work together with the assets that we put on top. So the transition is really nice from this ground texture to this one. And then we have like the same rock set on both of them. And it makes for like a nice amount of detail on the ground. Then occasionally we spawn some of these spider-looking ground pattern meshes. So this spot here is really nice because you get like the particles, the monochromatic terrain, the assets, and it's all against the backdrop of the skybox of the pyro system, which is red. Then we get like some really cool looking sunbeams coming through the volumetric clouds here. And then if I turn the sun and we make this dark and I jump in game, you can see how drastically the skybox impacts the lighting when you're on the dark side of the planet. And the skybox is just, yeah, it looks really good. So this is the skybox for the entire pyro system. So you can see it has like very thin atmosphere, so you see it well here. I'm happy to have had this opportunity to show you guys the work that we did in the last 2 years. I'm super excited to see you guys explore the pyro system for the first time, to hear your feedback. There's still work that we have to do, but I hope that you are even more excited than before after seeing what I showed you today.
was sitting in my chair, and he's left. I don't know where he went, but he should not be let back in the building. Yeah, black shirt, jeans. Yeah, just keep him out of the building. Because he sat in my chair. All right. When are we live? Hi, welcome back to CitizenCon 2952. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and yeah, welcome to the spaceship, to the only constant. We are joined here by two CIG luminaries, VP of Development, Mr. Brian Chambers, and Chief Development Officer, Mr. Aaron Roberts. How you doing, guys?
Not too bad.
You were looking at me, and you thought I was going to forget it because I couldn't remember it.
That's right.
During the thing. I'm not good with titles.
I know.
I've had 6 of my own, and my job hasn't changed. I can't check it. So,
I like you, Dick.
that's what I was going to be.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
That's
spaceship,
cool.
guys.
Yeah,
How you doing?
Absolutely.
Good.
You like it? You like it? We have been talking about this, dreaming about this, and just imagining doing this since 2015. Every time we talked about changing the stuff up and whatnot, like what should we do? And it was always like, we should build a spaceship. We should build a spaceship. And it's always like, yeah, someday. But we did it. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's cool. It's way cool.
I'm sorry.
And you're always shooting stuff. You're shooting material constantly. So having a dedicated space that's dialed in that you're cool with, right? It's good.
So we just watched Planetary Pyro. That was the first of our Journey to 4.0 presentations that we're showcasing here today during CitizenCon 2952. A brief tour throughout some of the planetary locations you saw from the upcoming Pyro system. You two recently took kind of a whirlwind tour. Where'd you guys go?
We basically went over to Asia because we really wanted to go and visit some of the community over there. And so it was actually quite a lot of fun for us, and actually a great experience in terms of learning a lot about the community over there and what they would like and all that kind of stuff. And so it's actually one of the better trips I've been on, and really enjoyed it. Got to meet fantastic people in the events everywhere we went, and so it was really good and really educational for me, actually.
Yeah, same. We first went to Korea, had a nice bar citizen out there, hung out with people. Great food, great fun stories. While we were in Korea, we did a live stream into the China Bar Citizen that was happening at the same time. So we had some technical difficulties streaming while we were
that
there.
made it more interesting.
Yeah. We couldn't hear them and so on, so they were typing out questions, but the banter was great. And then the next week we jumped over to Singapore and hung out with those guys as well.
I was going to say, we haven't had any technical difficulties so far today. I don't know what. I was going to say, nothing in here is actually wood.
So while we're talking about it, the community actually gave us some cool stuff. So first, this was given to us by the Korean community.
This is great, yeah. We'll have you open this.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
This was for you. I don't know the full history behind it, but it is like a replica of an ancient scroll, but the characters are put together as Star Citizen.
Which is really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Which is incredibly cool.
That guy's doing the Steve Bender.
So we each got one of those as well, but they specifically wanted us to bring one back for you.
Let me switch to Brian's cam. Let me see if I can move this over here and get it here. Brian, I'm going to hand this to you so I don't get out.
Absolutely.
Hold that and get a little closer to the camera there. There we go. That's very nice.
You got the string right. Yeah. Incredibly cool.
All right, now give it back to the
Yeah.
Give it to me.
I'll mess it up.
And then from Singapore, we got
Yep.
really cool.
Then we jumped over to Singapore, and while we were there, this is one we'll also have to.
Everybody at the event signed this awesome.
Let me get this strong here. You grab one side.
I'll grab one side. There we go.
Wrong way.
We did not plan this.
No, we didn't.
This
Clearly.
is bad, but we got everybody's signature, so we're going to put this up in our new offices in Manchester.
Oh, very cool.
It's very cool. So so this thing. But anyway,
And then there's other stuff in there. You can pull some of them out if you want.
that's all for you.
Really cool little coins they made and cards and so on.
And of course, if you're not familiar with what a Bar Citizen is, you can check out barcitizen.sc. It is a completely community backer-run organization that helps coordinate basically gatherings of Star Citizens all around the world, including most recently Singapore and China and South Korea. I know there was one in San Diego last night, if I was not mistaken. This says Bar Citizen Singapore, and it's made by the community, and it is a, what is that? Oh, it's a Bar Citizen card.
Yep.
It's metal.
It's proper, yeah.
Nice. Okay, well, I'm gonna read that out. And there's some other challenge coins and stuff. We will go through this on our own time because people are probably like, just get to the next thing.
Exactly.
I know who our viewers are. So before we do move on to the next thing, Brian, Aaron, it is our 10th birthday, our 10th anniversary. 10, it's 10 something. There was an internal debate whether this was the birthday or the anniversary, but the anniversary is sometimes it's November, the birthday is in October. Whatever it is, it's 10. You got any favorite memories of something? I don't know how long we're going to keep you here, so I want to use you when I got you here. On the spot here.
I've been here about 8 years, just about 8 years, right? So a fair amount of the 10. The first one that comes to my mind, there's a lot, but the most memorable one I would say would be 2016 at CitizenCon in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Very first CitizenCon I'd ever been to. Really hadn't interacted face-to-face with the community that much. We put a lot of love and effort into what we were going to show. Chris is on stage. He's about to show everything off. I'm looking for a seat. I couldn't find a seat. I went down basically middle floor in the theater and sat on the floor in between all the rows with all the backers. And as I'm sitting there and the demo's going, I already know the demo and the pacing, and then the sandworm blows out of the ground and everybody blows up. And I'm kind of below everybody because at this point they're jumping up. And just to be there and for the people to have the reaction of the thing that you've been working on, right? That's something I'll never forget. It was something, you're at that level, you're feeling the love from them, the excitement that they have of what they're, and you're going, wait, hold on. I'm used to working at companies where we hold our stuff for 2, 3, 5 years without showing anything. So you have this opportunity to show this off and you get this feedback. It was my first, basically, interaction with community on a face-to-face basis. It was really cool.
Very cool. I was there at that time. I'm pretty sure we were sitting on the floor together at one point or another.
Probably, yes.
Aaron.
I mean, I think a lot of it's what Brian just said. I mean, the thing I always love to do and like to do, and I haven't been able to do it the last couple of years for obvious reasons, is actually just whenever the event's going on, I hate being backstage, so I literally just go and find. I like to go out amongst everybody and just sit there and watch the whole, watch the event and watch everybody's reactions to it. And the other thing about it is just that I've made so many actually good friends, with people in the community and so forth. There's a lot of community members now who enjoy going to see me again all this time. So the last 2 years have been kind of painful to have to do that, but the ability just to be there with everybody and to see the reaction and have those conversations is the massive thing for me. It'd be too hard for me to pull, one event. I mean, there's some things that have happened which I probably can't talk about, which could be, but really in terms of the general, I think it's really that ability to be amongst everybody and see that.
I even think of overall just the journey we've been on in making this project, right? When I started in Frankfurt with a handful of other people in Germany, Hassan, IT in the UK, loaded up a van. And I remember this van showed up with our PCs, our monitors. Then they included like some pens and pencils and trash cans and a coat rack.
That's right.
And we set everything up, and it was like cool. And we were just like, all right.
Was it the event after that where he basically was working so late, he got locked in Cologne?
Yes.
He couldn't leave. He basically got locked in, so he basically had to sleep in the sleep in the lots of it is all that kind of stuff. There's so many stories. There's so many times I've met people, and just all the events. It's been fantastic.
As a follow-up to that Hassan story, Hassan is one of my favorite people.
He's good.
Here at LCG. We were at Cologne in 2016. That was a really hard event to manage, and sitting with him on that last day, he and I, everybody's off partying. We've completed the thing, and Hassan and I are breaking stuff down, and it was along with a bunch of other crew. And he just sits there and he goes, "Dude, I don't know if I can do this next year." I'm like, "There's nobody else to do it except us." He goes, "No, I'm going to take PTO next year." I'm like, "You are not going to take PTO next year." And the next year, he had 2 weeks, like before and after Gamescom blocked off. I'm like, "You took PTO?" He goes, "I told you." I'm like, "You're my hero. You actually And again, he set everything up. He had all the backups done. It went off flawlessly and everything. But it's just, yeah, it's there are a lot of stories. I'm interested to see how Ian and Todd are going to answer this question later on. That's enough chit chat at this point. Let's get on to our next presentation, design brief investigations. One of the most common requests we get from the community is to talk about things at their earliest states. Tell us what you're just thinking about, not necessarily the next thing or the thing after. Like, share the earliest design stuff for how a thing might work. Everything you're about to see can and will change dramatically from the point of today to the point where it makes the game. But we wanted to open that curtain to the earliest points, and we've got Luke Presley and Elliot Maltby, who are going to discuss an entirely new kind of mission. Not a new mission, an entirely new scope and type and design of missions that move away from combat and transport and go more towards cerebral deduction and investigation. So here we are, design brief investigations, and we'll see you when you come back. Take care.
Hi, my name's Elliot Maltby. I'm a principal system designer. I work with Luke Presley on the mission feature team. I'm here today to talk about one of the new mission types we're prototyping.
So this is an early look, a new mission type, and usually we don't give you a look this early. It's because we don't have the nice shiny visuals.
But people keep asking to see the design brief, so we thought, what the heck, we'll let you see.
So a mission is built out of objective types, and the mission type really is just the most critical or challenging objective in that mission.
Currently, we have a number of mission types in the game. Some of these are not built in that modular sense. Some of these are very much bespokely built to test out a feature at one time. The original PI Wanted is one of those. The current mission types that do exist is we have deliveries, which are essentially a form of collect and drop off. We have eliminate missions, which is just kill someone, and eliminate ship missions, which is go there and kill destroy a ship that has a person inside of it. And there's many more. The way we see missions is they're comprised of little bits of gameplay. So, for example, we have missions where you're sent to kill a singular person, or pick up a box, or kill a bunch of enemies. So the way how we build our missions is we combine these together. So we'll have missions where you have to pick up a box, but we'll have enemies there that you have to kill, as they're kind of like an obstacle for you to get around.
That isn't to say that you can't build a mission out of a single objective. The assassination mission, for instance, has one objective: assassinate a target. But even the most simplistic mission, like the delivery mission, is actually built out of two objectives. There's the collection of the item and the delivery of the item. And if we made the collection of that item even more difficult, we'd refer to it as a collect mission rather than a deliver mission.
So our objective types, for the time being, have been pretty simple. Kill this person, go here, do this. Until now, we're now looking at doing one of the most complex type of objective and gameplay things we've tackled in MFT. With that said, we're working on a new mission type, and that's investigation. Currently in the game, the player can feel like a bounty hunter, a mercenary, a person who does deliveries, a cargo hauler. We want to make them feel like a detective as a new route. We're expanding constantly. We're building mining, salvage, and detective is going to be our focus in MFT.
The experience we want to give players with the investigation mission is that they feel like a detective, that they feel like they're collecting evidence that will ultimately answer the question that has been posed to them, and that they're able to kind of search through the evidence and find the red herrings and choose the right answer.
So what we want is we want to build a mission that requires you to have to think, requires you to have to look around, search your environment in detail, look at each individual clue and make sure you fully understand it before you make your decision as the detective.
And there'll also be red herrings thrown in there. So evidence will really have to be like poured over to be able to determine whether it's actually credible or not. We also wanted to create narratives around our locations that we haven't done before, like really dig into like why has this derelict become a derelict, or why have all the ship's crew come to be dead, or why has this cargo gone missing. At the core of this mission, we're really asking the player to use their brain rather than their gun or their ship.
So for this mission type, I don't want to breadcrumb players along. I want you to feel like a detective. I will give you a story, I will give you little bits of clues, and you have to make up this full sort of painting and decide exactly what has happened here. And then the rest of the decision is on yours. I might not tell you if it's wrong or right, you might find out. The idea is that you feel like a detective and you're so sure of your decision that you're going with that. So the next stage in this whole process is building a pitch. You know, we have to come up with our ideas, how we want it to work, and then we have to present it to CR, Tony, and Todd, and make sure they're all happy with it and all of our visions are aligned. So when we're building the pitch, we start off by going over the ideal experience we want for the player. We start off with the most advanced things, all the gameplay mechanics we could dream of to bring this sort of role to life as a detective. And then we have to start looking at stripping it back to see when we can release it, what's the minimum viable product for this experience.
And in the case of the investigation mission, we came up with two. So the first pitch is extremely simple, and it revolves around being able to find a definite answer, like something that is undisputable. For instance, we came up with a mission where there is a repairman that's gone missing, and you can go to his office and you can find some correspondence that will lead you to another place, which will have his like work itinerary on there, and they're all crossed off until one. And if you're smart, you'll go to that location, and should you go to that location and do a little searching, you'll find his body there, and he's been like electrocuted, fixing the final thing on his list. And there's your definitive ending. Whereas the second pitch, it's more about allowing the player to choose when they're done, like when they think they have solved the mystery. And the way we do this is we scatter evidence around the location and clues that lead you to that evidence. And obviously there can be red herrings in there. You can get your like answer up to a credible state, which might still be the wrong answer but you can complete the mission then. Whereas if you'd have carried on digging a little more, maybe found a few more clues and followed them, you would perhaps find an indisputable piece of evidence, like, you know, I did it kind of thing, that would get you like the bonus of the mission. And both pitches had their strengths and weaknesses. The simple pitch, we could see like how easy it was to scale, and it involved less complex narrative work. But we ultimately decided to go for the second because we liked the idea of giving the player the agency to decide when they were done. So we're in the prototype phase with the investigation mission, which is more important than ever because it's such a complex mission, and we need to ensure that it's scalable and that other designers can make their own mysteries with it.
With the pitches, we can now prototype and sort of get that gameplay feel and see which one we want to explore more for the player's experience. Some of the hardest points of this are going to be the scalability of it. An investigation at its core is a story, so the story should always be at the forefront and the focus.
So the first stage of prototyping was to prove that we can make it like a mystery happen in the most restricted location we have, which was like a derelict. So this kind of interplay between the crew of it. From there, we're going to expand so that it takes into account more locations and uses all of the evidence retrieval interactions that we currently have. For instance, like you can kill a guy and get information off him, you can find a corpse, get information off him, you can loot box, get information off it. And then we'll be prototyping the newer ways of getting information off of things. We're looking into using the med gun to find the name and cause of death of people, and we're looking into being able to find the Moby lesson in inventory and download data from it.
One of the hardest things that we have to figure out is the story. The investigation will live and die by its story, so we work very closely with the writers to try and figure out what kind of story we want to tell, what kind of clues we want to give, and then after that point we look at sort of what obstacles we want to put in your way, keypad locked doors, enemies, traversal puzzles, things like that.
The main challenge for creating this mission is ensuring that the player has enough guidance to complete it without putting mission markers on everything. It is supposed to be about them searching, figuring clues out for themselves, and finding the answer themselves.
We want you to still feel like that detective, but ensure that we're giving you enough information in the ways that we can.
And we're working with the UI designer on the new Moby lens, which should really help with this.
So this has been our video design brief on our investigation missions. We're really excited to bring these to you. We wanted to give you an early look to let you know what we're thinking and see what you're thinking about these as well.
And we're really excited about it because it will allow us to inject a lot more story into the persistent universe.
So with everything we do, iteration is a key part of how we build things. So by the time you see this, and maybe by the time it comes out, it might have changed drastically. We don't know yet. We're still working on it and figuring out the fine details. But player experience and player agency is at the focus of what we're trying to achieve.
We're really excited and hope you are too.
And I'm sure we'll be talking about this again in the future.
And that was Design Brief Investigations. Joining us here, and the only constant to follow up on that, is Star Citizen Live Game Director, Mr. Todd Pappy, and Star Citizen Narrative Director, Mr. Dave Haddock. How you guys doing?
Good.
These missions. We've got combat missions, we've got, calling missions. This is a whole new narratively driven kind of initiative for the Persistent Universe. What can you add to what's being said? How does this work, Dave? What kind of missions are we talking about? What kind of stories are we looking at here?
I mean, it's, again, we're still trying to figure out, it's a really interesting technical challenge because basically, with a mystery, it's tied into the story. And so, but because we need to populate the universe, it's presenting a really interesting challenge of how do we make these modular, but yet still feel specific. So it's a really unique challenge to try and navigate those waters and tell something that's satisfying. And again, kind of a new style of gameplay to engage people in a much more non-combat specific way that lets them kind of take advantage of all of our systems and just kind of explore and get to be these kind of, detectives.
Well, and ideally, it's something that you can't always notice or always be like, okay, it's, Colonel Mustard with the
lead pipe.
With the lead pipe or the rope, So we want to make sure that it feels unique, to the area and interesting. So like Dave said, I think it is going to be a big challenge for us to figure it out.
And the fun thing about it too is this is a type of mission where it's not just knocking out checkpoints on a list. So part of the fun with it was creating a system where the onus is on the players to feel like they have enough information to have solved the case, but not flat out telling them right out the bat, yes you have or no you haven't. So it's definitely a fun thing that's presenting a lot of cool, unique opportunities. You think it may be going one way, but there might be a key piece of evidence that you've missed that completely blows the case open.
I know we often refer to the Persistent Universe as the sandbox. I think a lot of people will anxiously be looking forward to more storytelling possibilities, more narrative possibilities within the Persistent Universe. So it is our 10th anniversary. So I'm asking everybody who's joining us today for your favorite 10th anniversary stories. Todd, you're looking at me very intently, like what are you thinking right now? I can't get lost in your eyes. Not today.
Well, if there was going to be any day, it should be today. For at least for me, it would have to be at least one of the sitcoms. I know Brian mentions like the Homestead demo, but I think even just getting 3.0 out the door, like that was such a arduous process, and climbing up that hill was a difficult one, but to finally get that out and you see people's reactions. And
Do you remember in the 3.0 launch, I made this unfortunate bet with the community based on Chris Roberts' feedback that we were going to be out by June, not that I wouldn't shave until 3.0 comes out. It is December. We are in the global go, no-go. To launch a big patch like this is very much like mission control. Everybody's checking in, you know, I'm good. And we get to, and Aaron is on this call, he's leading this call. He says, well, that seems like everybody. I'm in a bathroom listening to it on a thing with a razor ready to go. And Aaron, I don't know if you remember this, Aaron, but you go, all right, that's everything, we're ready to go? And Chris goes, well, maybe we should check a few more things so Jared doesn't have to shave. and I usually sit in these meetings and I'm muted. I'm not supposed to be talking in these meetings. I'm muted. I'm like, you launched this thing. And then it was Aaron who took pity on me. He's like, all right, launch the patch. Do you recall that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And Dave, we'll get your story before we move on to the next thing. What's your favorite memory in the last 10 years?
I mean, it's tough to lock it down. I mean, I have two kind of distinct areas. Actually, it was the morning of the GDC announcement. Like, I was in LA and woke up early to watch the live stream. So hearing Chris, after, you know, at that point I'd been on it for a couple of months, of finally pitching it out and seeing the reactions of people freaking out and crashing the website and all that good stuff, was definitely, you know, the kind of the first indicator of what this could be, that this was really tapping into something that people really wanted to see. But for me, one of the big ones was really, actually, it was the 2015, like the PCAP shoot, just to be able to work with that cast. The crew was amazing. Everything about it was just like this real engaging. I mean, it was a three-month shoot.
Yeah, I think it was 3. Yeah, that's one that stands out for me huge as well.
It was.
I mean, the
really
cast
fun.
that was there and how you dealt with them on a daily basis and the passion that they had.
Excellent work. Ground units have moved in and captured
yeah,
Mako.
and it was
You
these
can
sort
now
of fun,
spawn
weird
here.
things of, you know,
Rearm and get back in the fight.
There was a song that came about during the production that, I won't spoil anything, I don't know if it's actually been released, but that became sort of the theme song of the entire shoot, which was amazing. So.
Xylo's blowing up my phone saying we need to hurry it up. So I don't know what that means so much, but just letting you know.
All right, bring it back to me. All right. So thank you so much, Todd and Dave. It's time to move on to our next Journey to 4.0 presentation, the new Underground, where we explore what you think you know about underground facilities and then explode them in a whole new way. So check that out.
Hello, I'm Ian Leyland. I'm
The
the
Special
art
Forces
director
unit
for
is
Star
deployed
Citizen,
west of Fort
and
Paris.
today we're going to talk
They are
about
preparing to
underground
take back
facilities.
control of Mako.
Now this
We
was
cannot
a
let this
presentation
happen.
that we gave
Airstrike
Chris
approved on
internally
these
a little
targets.
while back. And what we're going to cover is how we're going to take one of the locations we have in the game right now, but actually really design it from the ground up to be the location archetype that we really wanted. Okay, let's get started. Let's talk about the original underground facilities. Now the problem was we made these originally for the CitizenCon presentation demo, and the time we had wasn't enough to kind of take the location where we wanted it to be. Now, it kind of fits the current purpose. It's fairly small in scale. It gives a multi-room layout opportunity for FPS combat, but we always knew we wanted it to be able to scale, you know, small, medium, large, to accommodate maybe 60 minutes of gameplay time per location. So how do we go about designing a location archetype from the ground up? So what we do is we split the location into the core areas we want to visually develop. Now for underground facilities, the first thing we're looking at here is what we're calling Zone 1. So this is the presence on the landscape. So what we're looking at here is an example key-art shot of what a medium-sized underground facility could look like. So dominant features that we're seeing here is a kind of a key spire. This is instantly where your player, you should be able to navigate towards. This could be like a corporate wing or an executive landing pad on the top. And then moving down is very important to be able to get the landing pads or the landing hangars quite close to the facility, because we wanted that experience as the player lands. They're not far off from the location, they're actually quite close, and you should be able to see a little FPS area where the player lands. Also, what we're seeing here is some visual justification at what might actually be going on. So you're seeing, processing and tanks and supplies actually on the landscape there. Now, what I was saying before about it being a kind of a much braver visual presence on a landscape, so we designed the silhouette primarily, so you'd be able to recognize these as a location to aim for. Also, what we're seeing here is we thought it'd be cool to actually have surface entrances as well. So we're actually thinking about primary, secondary, tertiary ways for the player to get into these locations, depending on the mission scenario. So like I said before, you've got like executive pads at the top, got the main hangars in the middle, and surface entrances down there below. Now moving on to the inside, so after the player's landed through the hangars, they'll be brought up into the main corporate reception. Now these are going to be quite interesting because we'll be able to rebrand these depending on the manufacturer or the location. That's where we'll get a lot of the variety. But this is the corporate presence before the player would go down into the bowels of the facility. And what we're seeing here is, just an example of what a bearing reception could feel like. Now moving into Zone 2, with it being an underground facility, the physical act of going underground, that's cool, right? So we wanted Zone 2 to be about the logistics of the player going up and down, how we can make that cool visually, but also interesting from a player experience. So this is the transit, the elevator network. So we played around with a few different ideas into this, and one of the things that we thought could be quite interesting is the elevator itself could be a mini play space. So what we're looking at here is control room idea quite early, what sort of scale vehicles there could be. Now ultimately we didn't go with this idea. It didn't really fit the art style that we wanted, but it had some pretty interesting ideas. So what we landed on here is something that we felt quite comfortable with internally. Now it's worth noting we're designing these as an archetype first in a utilitarian art style. In the future we'll expand out and do other art style variants. So what we're seeing here is the control room overlooking the main warehouse floor, and then this elevator should be big and clear enough for the player to understand, like that's where logistics will go up and down. And for the elevator itself, we wanted it to be its own play space. So on the top level, that's where containers will be shipped up and down. Maybe underneath it, there could be little nooks and crannies. If we wanted to stealth into the location, we'd be able to give opportunities for the player there. And down below, this is what the player would kind of see. So now they're really starting to get into the bowels of the facility. So echoing of that control room down below, but also this is where we'll present the player with an opportunity to choose the area they want to go. Maybe cargoes to the left, maybe processing to the right, or maybe technicals up above. Part of that process of how we design is we look at things about from the player's point of view. So what we're seeing here is pretty good indication about how the player would exfiltrate from the location. So a lot of the lines are leading towards the elevator because we want navigation to be as intuitive as possible. Moving on to Zone 3, so this is the bowels of the facility. So these are going to be spaces that we've never really explored before. A lot of the locations in the game tend to be quite residential. Here we're going for something completely industrial. As a player, you want to feel like an ant almost to the location. The primary purpose is not for you to be walking around, so we dedicated spaces towards logistics, and we put kind of personnel walkways almost as a secondary element. So in this image you're kind of seeing where big trucks kind of go. We've also got like little nooks and crannies that you can kind of explore and go into. Now, as it being a location dedicated towards the moving of logistics, we wanted to explore and have fun with vehicles, right? So here we're seeing the mule kind of coming and going on one of these walkways. You know, maybe there's elevators. So on the right, what we're seeing is a ladder. So with all of these play spaces, as we were having fun and visually exploring, we always kept in mind of different ways for the player to traverse through the scene. Also, as part of that, we wanted to think about verticality, so not just a linear direction of traversal, but also ways in which we could go vertically. So maybe there's the concept of a cargo elevator within the corridor. So kind of similar to how you'd see on a character be a little control room looking at the flight deck. Here you could kind of see something very similar. Maybe this ties into gameplay puzzles about how you could bring cargo in and out. You know, maybe as a player you're trying to steal some cargo out. There's tons of potential for how we could do puzzles in that regard. So looking at this image, we took loads of inspiration from modern day aircraft carriers about how you see pads on the flight deck go to the underbelly. We thought this would already give tons of opportunity for not only cool visuals, but also ways in which you can reveal extra traversal opportunities. So as that cargo deck goes down, you'd see other ways to kind of traverse through into the facility. Okay, so what we're looking at here is kind of an example corridor. Now, corridors in our game are quite important to us, but they don't necessarily have to be boring. Now, what we're seeing here is an establishment of a radial motif. Now, with this being subterranean, we wanted to always imply that there's a weight kind of pushing down. So this radial motif is the best load bearing. So as a design language, instantly was feeling quite right. So in this traversal corridor, what we're seeing is a few different things. Clearly, there's a clear route for logistics. That's cool. But also on top of that, you've got these side routes, which is where personnel would go. Split hierarchy, so it would be pretty cool for FPS combat, you know, for opportunities there. And then leading in, underneath, you're kind of seeing a tertiary route. Now, part of this could be this maybe is stealth route, or maybe this is the upper area is blocked off, so the player has to go down below. So even within something as a concept of a corridor, we want to design many different avenues for the player. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the underbelly of that concept we just showed. So up above, dedicated towards logistics, maybe containers going through, shipping containers going through. Underneath here, maybe this is just more towards the processing of it, maybe hydraulic cylinders for these elevators coming and going. Hierarchically, it's a different mood. So up above, it's cleaner, it's noisier, but down below, darker, more steamy. And again, that presents other opportunities for gameplay. Now, we can't have these corridors going on forever. Performance-wise, we'd never be able to draw it, and it wouldn't be the most entertaining for the player. So we came up with the idea of introducing these bulkheads. So these bulkheads are almost checkpoints. So it enables us to break that draw distance, but it also enables us to break the rhythm of traversal. So from going from a corridor into an ops room or something like that, that's a way in which to kind of checkpoint the progress through the location. So inside these bulkheads, we could maybe array like ops rooms. Maybe these are scanning checkpoints to kind of monitor the movement of cargo to and from. You know, also inside here, you know, there could be tea rooms or break rooms or offices. So again, we're trying to break the rhythm of traversal, so the player's going from a large space to a small space, but also from one theme to another theme. And what that will hopefully do is create a really good rhythm of the play space where the player's not getting bored of traversing through the space. So what we're seeing here is a side view to kind of explain how that process. So on the left, we've come into the corridor.
That's the last target.
Top, we're seeing
We have captured Malchus. We can now spawn there.
Bottom route coming in as well. So this is how, again, we're going to try and keep verticality as a traversal motif in mind. Now, going from a large corridor set to what we're considering here medium or small. So these are the tertiary networks that will link into the primary traversal route. So these again will be continuing the radial motif that we've been seeing, and these would take the player and connect into the main spaces. Now from traversal networks to theme rooms. Now as the player's traversing through, we wanted to chapter that experience with key theme rooms. Now what we're seeing here is an example of an industrial space. Maybe it's processing. We didn't want to go too specific, just so that in the early development process we wanted to explore motifs that could work. So here we're seeing an example of
Special reconnaissance soldiers have located an ammunition cache near Sebe. Take out the 4 bunkers.
Right from the bottom level, there's a network of levels which dedicate to processing, pipes, machinery, all of that sort of good stuff. And then as we get higher up, we're seeing that very dominant kind of technical control wing suspended over the play space. As an idea, this creates a plethora of interesting opportunities as a play space to fight the way through or solve puzzles. One of the things early on we wanted is cause and effect. We wanted the player to be interacting, solving puzzles, but seeing that reflect into the space. Another theme room idea we came up with was processing. So bringing in raw materials, processing them through, ready for manufacturing. So we had a bit of fun with ways in which we could kind of create these quite interesting set pieces. So it's not all just industry in the underbelly of these underground facilities. There's also going to be technical areas, areas dedicated towards the control of the location. So what we're seeing here is maybe it's the main map room. So this is where they control the networking of everything. And also on here, you've got the overseeing executive suite. So it's not just technicians here, but also executive wings. And also as a bit of fun, if the player does get access to these executive wings, then we're seeing another type of art style in here as well. So we've seen industrial, we've seen technical. Now we'll be seeing, more like the corporate foyer we saw up above. So meeting rooms, office spaces, that sort of thing. And what we're seeing here is maybe there's the data processing of the location. So as a quick idea, we thought these data racks are actually submerged for cooling in a base of water. We thought also it'd be cool if there's a cause and effect. So if the player solves a puzzle, they go from it being below water to above water. So again, ways in which we can kind of spark ideas or conversations with design about interesting opportunities. And then lastly, Zone 4. Now, it wouldn't be a missed opportunity if we didn't go into some sort of organic locations as part of the underground facility. So this could be excavation zones or areas where it's been abandoned. This could lead into cave networks. This was something we had quite a bit of fun with. So how do we actually take the player from being in this fairly well-established industrial location to a cave? There needs to be some form of transition period. So we came up with ideas about how we'd see excavation equipment or, with the roads kind of peter out. And as part of the roads, maybe we can do some pretty cool layouts for the player to drive through. Something that's a little bit more invested than just a straight line. Now, as part of that transition period between heavy industrial to exposed cave, the equipment needed to create further UGF spaces, maybe there's a large boring machine still there. Again, maybe that comes into some form of gameplay opportunity for the player to traverse over, interact. That's kind of cool. Also, as part of that, another opportunity to introduce a new element to the space could be, as we're transitioning towards more natural spaces, we can not only introduce different types of geology, but maybe we're introducing some form of liquid. So depending on the location, maybe it's on a certain planet, there could be like underground rivers, underground lakes, maybe it's lava, maybe it's acidic. And also if we're describing these locations as maybe some are more abandoned, we could start to showcase how nature slowly started to take over. This also would introduce some pretty cool opportunities. So also another process we do during concept development is I like to start taking some of these ideas we're developing and get them in the engine as soon as possible. And what this affords us is we can sit down with Todd and we can really evaluate how well an idea is working in terms of space, size, composition, gameplay opportunities right from the early visual development process. And what we're looking at here is very loose concept meshes brought into the engine, quickly lit, just for that exploration process. That's an overview of what we're pushing for the new underground facilities. I'm quite excited about it, and hopefully you are soon. And we look forward to showing you more in the future.
Request refueling. Request rearming.
Copy.
All right. That was The New Underground, starring our very own Star Citizen art director, Mr. Ian Leland. Ian, why are we redoing the underground facilities?
Well, kind of as we said in the segment, we always wanted it to be a much bigger, more special location in the game, so it was always on our to-do list.
And you've been here a while. The last 10 memories, drink up, Todd. Last 10 years, what's your favorite memory?
Ooh, favorite memory. It's kind of hard to pick one, but maybe a good one to start would be, I remember joining the company nearly 9 years ago and going on paternity and then realizing we're making Arena Commander, and we had about 6 or 8 weeks to make it, so that was a good fun challenge. Yeah.
That was not originally on your team, and it was just kind of like, here it is.
But it was good. It was a bit like baptism by fire, and we kind of pushed the engine to what it could do at the time, and we was super happy with it. Yeah.
So these new underground facilities, it's not just going to be a big, giant, empty, awesome-looking, playground with nothing to do.
Correct.
What are we going to be doing in these things?
I mean, all of our mission verbs count. It's basically we want them to be a sandbox element, that players can go and explore, but whether it's sabotage or infiltrate or investigate or deliver boxes to, all these elements go into all the design elements. When we're thinking about this, when we're testing out rooms, like all the interaction aspects for it, puzzle elements. So basically, when the team's doing it, we're building it, but also implementing the different design elements into the room at the same time.
And all those different theme rooms that you were talking about, open up all kinds of storytelling possibilities with the different companies and who knows what misadventures are going on. Exactly. 3 levels underneath the surface of Yila versus 4 levels underneath the surface of Pyro 2 and stuff. Right. And these are coming to both the Stanton system and the Pyro system and wherever else afterwards. Correct. I'm not saying, because I like my job. All right, so in addition to that, am I this one? I'm this one. Nope, I'm this one. I'm this one. Hi, everybody. We've got a number of promotions going on today. Everybody that's a member of the Star Citizen community, you've got a registered account on the website, is getting a free digital goodies pack. It's available for all backers. It's got Francis, the party animal plushie, which I believe it's a Finley with a fun hat, isn't it? There's nobody here to answer me. A Falston jumpsuit, the Shubin edition, which is really cool. We don't have a lot of onesies in the clothing line, clothing-wise for the Precision Universe. And a grenade launcher, because giving everybody in the universe a grenade launcher, that's going to be fun. We've also got a Tobii Eye Tracker contest going on. JRDF, our partners at JRDF are giving away Carrick, Freelancer, and Cyclone models. And the Halloween promotion is already live. And there's another Halloween contest where they're giving out some Caterpillars and Buccaneers. You can find out everything you need to know about that up on the robertspaceindustries.com website. And yes, I saw the chat going. I did comb my hair because while Brian was being messaged about one thing, I got messaged by my mom, who didn't like that I hadn't combed my hair. Hi, Mom. All right, what's next, everybody? Up next is, well, it's one of the segments that I'm looking forward to most. It's our sleeper segment of the day, as far as I'm concerned. The need for multiple speeds with Rich Towler and Yogi and Jed and Johnny and Dave from the Flight Experience, Flight Comp feature team. They keep changing their names as much as I do. They're going to talk about one of Star Citizen's oldest and most complex problems and the exciting new solution that they have for it. So check that out, and we'll meet you back here.
Hi, my name is Yogi Klatt. I'm a gameplay programmer in the vehicle feature team. I'm here with Rich Towler, David Coulson, Jed Talbot, and Johnny Young. And today we're gonna talk to you about the upcoming changes to the flight systems and the combat systems, which are done specifically for Squadron 42, but which will eventually find their way to the persistent universe. We want to define ship roles for the game because every role in itself and every ship can offer unique gameplay opportunities for individual players.
We want to provide a lot more variety to the gameplay in Star Citizen, a lot more opportunity for different careers, different responsibilities, and different sort of perspectives and views on gameplay where people contribute different types of work and different types of jobs.
Star Citizen is supposed to be a big expansive game with giving the players lots of chances to have a variety of different experiences. It's not just about combat, it's not just about an economy, it's not just about piracy, it's about all of those things happening at the same time. So we need ships that can act and function in different ways to support all of those different goals.
In trying to figure out these roles and define what they are and make the gameplay for them, we started very heavily leaning toward combat, mostly because combat is a mechanic that is very widely applicable throughout the game, and the principles behind it apply to various other roles in the game.
We've been working away in the S42 branch, and this has really allowed us to isolate these ships, so we've kind of broken it down into archetypes, and it's really allowed us to kind of break down what these ships do. And also it's to make sure that when we are defining these roles and balancing these roles, that we're putting the ships in the right place, because we don't want the ships to be like, you play this ship, it means you dominate this part of the game. But there's always got to be plus and minuses so the balance is right. So there's still some crossover between the ships. So just picking one type of ship just isn't just a win.
We have already defined several ship roles, and they're usually known as light, medium, and heavy fighters. Light fighters for us are fighters which are very dominant in the area of 1 versus 1 PvP combat.
But they come with a downside, because obviously the light, which means the materials chosen on the ship, are probably not the strongest. So it's more about the attack. It's more about trying to outposition and get in there and attack and get out of the situation.
Heavy fighters are kind of the opposite. They're not supposed to be really good at 1 versus 1, but they excel at N versus N engagements, so when we have group battles. Medium fighters for us, internally we call multi-role fighters, because they have a lot of hard points, so they have a lot of loadout flexibility. So a player can tune them to the role whatever they want, but they will never reach the performance of dedicated ships.
A lot of the medium fighters sometimes come with a turret as well, so they've got that additional gameplay of the turret, which is aimed to kind of counter the lack of maneuverability that those ships have.
And then additionally to that, we have racing ships, which are basically just really fast at changing the velocity vectors. And interceptors, which we basically just want to go very fast in the forward area, but never reaching really the performance envelope of dedicated dogfighters.
Interceptors are designed to kind of catch up to ships and disable them. So they come with kind of advanced kind of hardware on these ships.
Bombers, on the other hand, are well, they're just slobbing heavy ordnance at larger targets, so you use them to take out bigger ships, but they're not really good at, well, killing small fighters. And then from smaller ships coming to larger ships like Constellation and up, we want to change the gameplay to be less about positional combat, but more going into the naval style of combat, where it's important to show the correct shield and fire arcs and timing your shots over long distances.
So the purpose of ship rules is to really help players understand what ships should be used and when they should be used. And it's really about delivering on those kind of gameplay promises that we've been talking about over the past kind of several years.
If every ship is the same, it's not fun. But if we have dedicated ships with dedicated pros and cons, then we can create very exciting combat environments. And the biggest challenge we see in order to get that gameplay we want is the current speed that we have in combat.
It's a subject we've talked about many, many times in the past. And it's something we've tried many things with. We've tried limiting things at speed, we've tried adjusting handling at speed, we've tried so many things to kind of manage the negative impact of speed on combat.
When ships are going fast in combat, they usually just end up very far apart, which is not very interesting, and it just devolves into jousting very quickly, which is also not very interesting.
The second you create a longer distance between you and the target, your angular requirements to maneuver to that target are just extremely small. And this is a very obvious math reason why high-speed combat is kind of the opposite of what we want to achieve.
Keep up the
Meaning
good work.
meaningful and effective positional maneuvering.
We want the combat to be closer and to be more turn-oriented, so rotations should matter more than just flat speed.
Having very high speeds that are pretty much the same between all ship classes negates a lot of the opportunity for smaller ships to flex different types of gameplay.
Another big issue with the speeds in combat is it's very hard to keep players engaged in the combat because players can move so far so quickly in such a short space of time. It's quite hard to keep a track on your opponent.
So you might think, oh, why don't we just make the ship slower and call it a day? Well, we can't do that.
The main reason we can't just make everything slower is the size of the Star Citizen world. We've got huge planets where we need to go from the planet's surface up into space. We need to transverse between different systems. So essentially we can't have just low speeds all of the time.
There's a massive universe out there to explore, there's planets to explore, and the feelings we want to capture with the speed, we still want an element of danger that you can still go too fast in lots of situations.
We have tried an awful lot over the past few years with what are called soft speed caps, where there is no speed cap on ships, but we encourage gameplay to occur at a lower speed. But it doesn't really work because the advantages of flying fast in terms of defense is just better.
So since the last year, the focus of Vehicle Feature Team shifted very heavily towards Squadron 42 and nailing down the flight and space combat experience for it. And I'm very proud to say that we finally found a really good working solution that we're going to show today. So the main idea is to simply not have combat and long-range travel at the same time. So we're splitting these gameplay experiences. This will be done by a thing which is called master modes. A master mode is a thing that is globally applied to your ship. And we have two of them. We have SCM, which is now relabeled as standard control mode, and QCM or QM for quantum mode.
The idea is that between these two modes we can constrain the speeds in combat and also get all of the maneuvering, like high speed maneuvering and traversal mechanics that we had before, but in these distinct modes that are integrated with lore and integrated with the ship functions, such that there's costs and payoffs for being in each of the two modes.
So let's start with standard control mode and what this means. So this is the mode that we intend to be the functional mode of the ship, whether it's combat or mining or any of these kind of core kind of things the ship does.
Awesome
We
work.
want the player
We
to
captured
do
Maz Dock
these
Base.
things in this
Keep
mode.
pushing forward.
And what this
Clock
does
is ticking.
is it reduces the speed of the ship, but it also enables the shield to be turned on. And obviously the intent behind this is where you do your combat. It's where the guns are on, the missiles can be armed and fired, and all the kind of operational things the ship does operates within this mode.
The speeds that you can reach in SCM are somewhat limited, somewhere between 200 and 300 meters per second, tuning pending. But this is basically the hard cap, which you cannot not really exceed. You can slightly exceed this by using boost, but you cannot maintain any velocity beyond that SCM limit for a longer period of time.
So we're thinking of this as some kind of energy management system, so you can go a little bit faster with a little bit more accelerations when you need to, but you know that it is a limited resource and you should use it carefully.
Specifically, the boost space is interesting for space combat because that boost space is not spheric as it was before. You can boost the fastest if you're going forward on a straight line, and you have a lot of debuffs when you're trying to boost backwards. That alone gets us a lot of interesting maneuvering space and variation in the day-to-day dogfight maneuvering, so to speak.
Importantly, you don't have your quantum drive available in this mode. The idea is that quantum is restrained to the quantum traversal mode.
The second mode is quantum control mode, or QCM or QM. What this mode does is it unlocks your maximum velocity that your ship can reach. So when you were limited before to 200 to 300 meters per second, now you can go to 1200, 1400 meters per second, whatever your ship allows you.
During the development of the quantum mode, we realized we needed something that was a little bit more kind of about traveling large distances, but not at the distances that you need to, speed up your quantum drive and travel across the universe. So we've created this feature called Quantum Boost, which is available in the quantum mode, and you can access it at any point. So at any point you want to kind of boost towards your location that you're kind of looking at, but it's just too far away. And this boost is available for a limited amount of time, and it's purely on a straight line.
Just to give you like a ballpark, Quantum Boost will allow you to go to a target fast if it's within, let's say, 50,000 kilometers, whereas you will use Quantum Travel to do very long-range jumps between planets. So Quantum Mode allows you to go very, very fast with up to like 1200, 1400 meters per second when you want to zip really fast over a planet. It also allows you to do Quantum Boost to quickly go between points of interest, which are rather close to you. And it allows you to travel long distances between planets and large-scale stellar objects. But it comes at a cost. Your capacitor systems are non-functional because they interfere with the quantum bubble that is allowing you to go fast. You won't have shields. Your shields will collapse right away when you swap into quantum mode. Your weapons will stop working because anything that's firing outwards of your ship will disintegrate the quantum bubble. Your countermeasures won't work, and you will also not be able to use thruster boost. So basically all your capacitor and combat related systems are turned off instantly.
When you switch between modes, there'll be a little period of time where everything has to spool up and change. So you will lose your shields during this, you won't have your weapons during this, but you also won't be going fast. So there's a risk-reward element when you need to switch modes.
So it's going to be a very kind of conscious choice of what mode you should be in at any particular point. So if you feel the threat of someone that's close by, you're not quite sure what their intention is, maybe switch to standard control mode and be safe. Or you can switch into quantum mode and escape. And this is going to kind of bring in an element of danger and an element of risk.
Because going into the two different modes is like a systemic thing within the ship's items, we actually have the opportunity now to define ship roles that can block people from escaping, either using devices that suppress the quantum bubble or devices that can effectively interfere with your ability to transfer between the modes. For example, specific ships like interceptors can be tuned such that they have a higher standard control mode speed, so they're able to catch up with people, or for example, make the swap between the modes faster and more efficiently so that they could catch up with you, go into standard control mode and attack you more effectively as per the properties of their ship versus
the side
another
mission
ship,
has been
which might not
completed.
be as good
Good
as you or
job.
something like that.
It's something that's fundamentally changed the gameplay experience for us. And this is working now, you know, and we're playing it every day in the studio, we're refining it, we're tweaking bits here and there, but we're at that stage now where we're tweaking and balancing. And we've got the core features, it's there in the game playable, and the difference it's made on the game for us is, it's basically night and day.
Because the speeds have been limited in standard control mode, suddenly fights are a lot closer. The accelerations of ships similarly have been retuned a little bit, and their afterburner strength has been retuned a little bit to make it so that you can orbit around ships and have a lot more interesting maneuvering. And because the ranges are closer, maneuvers that would be performed by your ship have a much more significant impact because you're closer. So if I like thrust up or down, you'll immediately see the difference. So similarly, things like capital ships effectively get a buff to their offensive capabilities with this change, because suddenly you can't orbit a capital ship at high range and high speeds. You have to get a lot closer, which will make the turrets much more effective at shooting you. Turrets become more important, and working as a group to attack capital ships is more important than it has been before.
This is a really exciting change because it allows us to keep the combat speeds relatively low, where we know that the gameplay is better for that, while also keeping the point-to-point travel speeds as high as they should be for PU.
Playing with Master Mode is probably fun too. It's been a lot of fun, simply because it's changed the entire combat experience. Before, you'd find that you were fighting at a huge distance. Now you find that you're in really tight, close combat with the other players. I think the biggest part of this is going to be when we have the larger ships interacting with the smaller ships. Once we can have battles with big capital ships and smaller ships, we'll have brought something to the Star Citizen world that I don't think has come out before, and I think it'll make a massive improvement to the game.
Having made these changes to implement master modes and rebalancing all of the ship speeds, we'll finally be able to define ship roles in the way that we've always wanted, and to bring a lot more variety to the gameplay that we haven't had before.
So it's been a really long journey here, obviously, because you've been a part of this journey. You know, and we've tried many different things over the time to try and really create the experience we want. But you know, the reality is, from us, it came down to what it always does in Star Citizen, which is creating choice for the players. It's about giving players the option, and their choices have consequences. You know, so with master modes, it really helps define the player choice in the game. So they're choosing to do combat, they're choosing to travel from A to B in quantum, they're choosing to QT boost somewhere. Just giving players that freedom within the universe we have is just, like, it's a really magical thing, and we try many times to control that as, you know, as designer, to try and get a specific experience at some point, but we always end up coming back to the fact, let's just give the players the choice and let them make the key decisions, and we'll design the balance around that.
We finally have it. So we're now nailing down the space combat experience for Star Citizen, specifically for Squadron 42. We know from internal playtest that the master mode stuff works. We know that it works with our flight retunings, and it's very exciting. It will yet take a while to ship this to the PU, because the amount of ships you fly in Squadron 42 is rather limited, whereas in Star Citizen we have about, I don't know, more than 100 ship records at the moment. But the whole hard problem of designing this thing in the first place is over. We just need to get the numbers in now.
And all the footage you've seen today is from Squadron. It's all currently playable in the game. That, you know, internally, that, you know, we're playing this every day. We're still making some tweaks, but everything is there right now. It's all got foundational kind of tweaks that we're making, and we can't wait to get in.
So thanks a lot for listening to us today. We're very excited to get the changes to you as soon as possible. And yeah, we'll hope to see you fighting in the verse.
All right, so I've got, out of everything here, I've got all the chicks on Nyx love my Lando Fever. What do you got, Brian?
Who is most likely to win in a dogfight?
Okay.
An Ortwin.
Ortwin. Shout out to Ortwin. It's been a long time.
Hey, Ortwin.
My one is, my cargo hold is always full of Chris Roberts.
Really? Show the camera.
There you go.
Wow. That's Vanduul Against Humanity, a game created by one of our own Star Citizen, one of the original Star Citizens, Mr. Ken Shadow. We still got it. It made the trip to UK, and we are playing it in between the sessions. So thank you again, Ken Shadow. John? Oh, I dropped the cards. It's gone. Talk to me about this segment we just watched. Is this BS, or do we actually have it?
I think we've got it. The team's been super hard at work for quite a long period of time on this. We've gone through, I don't know how many versions of this. We're sort of run out of interesting names to call all the development builds. We're on to fish names now.
Altitude.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work put into this, a lot of testing internally, like across the company, not just within our team, getting them all on board, getting them playing it, feeding back.
And I know we don't generally do when questions, but this is a pretty big change to the overall flight experience. Folks have been waiting for this fix for a while. Yeah. We're not talking about tomorrow or next week or give us why isn't this just going to be put into the PU tomorrow?
Two factors. We started doing this for Squadron, as naturally to have a great flight experience in Squadron, you need it to all work together. So we're focused on Squadron first for that, and Squadron has a much smaller subset of ships than the PU has. It's a lot easier to do a system like this, get the broad strokes in, and then really dial it in for 6 or 7 ships versus the hundreds in the PU. So it's a scale thing that stops it going in the PU straight away. And then the other thing is lots of it ties in together with other systems. So it's not just flight mechanics. It's UI, HUD, radar, star map, quantum changes, and you have to get all of that together in one. We can't really piecemeal it. You just won't get a great experience if we go, oh, here's one bit of it, here's another bit later. We want to drop it in one big deployment.
Are we going to drip feed ships, and like this ship's done and then this ship's done, or do you think more together all at once?
Yeah, what Brian said.
We have to do like a broad tuning across the board for everything. Day one for when this goes into the PU. Hopefully by then a lot of those will be really where we want them. That, as with game development, then constantly change. There will be ones that change over time.
Oh, you change the camera.
There'll be ones that keep going, and obviously community feedback's a great thing. It's very hard to get things right out the gate. There's only so much internal testing you can do. We need that feedback.
Absolutely. And I do want to say to folks who are watching, wherever you're watching, the 6 to 7 ships in Squadron was not a confirmation that there are only 6 or 7 ships in Squadron. We'll confirm that stuff much closer. Just if you're already halfway through your Reddit post, just delete a couple times and. All right, you ready to move on to the next thing?
Absolutely.
All right,
Let's do it.
So we've been bouncing back and forth between you know really hot visuals with the planets of Pyro, and then gameplay stuff with investigations, and back to the really hot visuals with the underground facility, then back to the solid gameplay stuff with the flight experience. Up next is another really solid visuals thing, Lorville. Meet me at camera 1. Lorville, Star Citizen's first landing zone. We've learned a lot since it was first put in. We've built Microtech, New Babbage, we've built Orizon on Crusader. We even went back and redid Area 18 on ArcCorp. But Lorville currently stands as the oldest standing landing zone in Star Citizen. And with our new team at Turbulent and ready to kick butt, and I was going to say kick names and take butt, I almost messed that up, and then I messed it up trying to explain that I didn't mess it up. They're getting ready, they're already underway building a brand new Lorville Redux. So we'll send it on over to Eric Gagnon and Maxime Guidon. I had it. I was so close.
So close.
And they can tell you all about it. Ooh, and Ian Leland. Check it out.
Hello, my name's Ian Leyland and I'm the art director for Star Citizen, and today we're going to talk about an internal initiative called Lorville 2.0. Now with Lorville, and specifically the Lorville Cityscape, it was probably the first major landing zone we'd ever had to do. It was the first time we put a landing zone on a planet, and we had the player fly there with minimal restrictions, although it did have that really big no-fly zone. But when we did subsequent landing zones, we built up a bit more of a knowledge base and experience base about how we can effectively introduce cityscapes. So Area 18, New Babbage, Orizon, we all developed more techniques, and we always wanted to go back internally and put that knowledge back into Lorville. To start us off, I'll throw it over to Eric, our principal concept artist, and he can show you some more.
Hi, my name is Eric Gagnon. I'm a principal concept artist for Star Citizen, Turbulent, and Montreal, and I'm here to talking about the Lorville 2.0. When I started to work on the concept, initially what I did is to create a variety of sketches, black and white sketches of a different approach of that city. We create a side panel of a silhouette of the building. Mainly the reason we need to work on that is for mainly gameplay issues, because we would like to make a gameplay in the interior buildings, and we need to create a bigger city to let the player have a fun experience to flying through that. Yeah, so after the sketching process and get some approval, I need to know very well the footprint of that city. We build a city from a human scale, you know. We have nothing in that city. Mainly the two main units I used to build a city. So we have a kind of a proportion.
Yeah, caveat, this was in Freelancer. They had 4 different traversal methods in Freelancer.
Why I used the 3D.
You had SCM, you had Boost, Afterburner kind of mode, and then you had like a Quantum mode.
To dig right away on the details, but it's to stay on the big picture and to see if the skyline makes sense. So this is a good challenge to play with that, and I think I did a nice job on that, because at the end, what the feeling we have, it's like a real city. So I use my my 2D background in concept artist to make the best as possible concept art with all the techniques inside of it. 3D, pen over, sketching, painting, and at the end I was needed to create a very speechless concept to sell the mandate to the people involved in that, and they make sure they believe on that project, and they could say, well, okay, now we are a Lorville 2.0, and we're ready to moving on that.
Thanks, Eric. There's some beautiful image there, and we had a lot of fun internally developing that cityscape. Now, we're not just in concept development. We've actually just passed our white box milestone internally, so we're going to jump over to Max, and he's going to show you where we're at.
Bonjour, mon nom est Maxime Guindon. Je suis chef environnement artiste sur le projet Star Citizen. Mon mandat en ce moment est Lorville 2.0. Premièrement, je voudrais dire bonjour à la communauté francophone de Star Citizen, à toute la communauté en fait. Ce que vous faites, ce que vous partagez m'inspire énormément dans mon travail. From the concepts done,
the side mission has been completed. Good job.
And we've had to evaluate what was possible to do and to extend or to make it much bigger than the initial Lorville city, up to something that matches the ambition. For instance, we are keeping the L19 area, we are keeping the CBD, we're keeping the spaceport, and we're building upon this and just extending the city. We've done several tests with the transit system, the rails, and we try to extend it out a bit. We're keeping the same number of gates, but we're moving them out. And so throughout these tests, we've built the city as just placeholder, white box, very primitive, to have this layout, this fast iteration of the whole city.
Another base
done,
down.
And then
Krimsk is now ours.
See it
you can now spawn there.
Get
Keep pushing.
feedback on it. So it will feel more like a believable city. We hope it to be fun to fly around and like to actually do some races in it. We're building arches, bridges, and like underpasses, and it makes it interesting to be able to fly around. We see the community of players. They're doing like emergent gameplay of races, and that inspires us. And then the way that we're building the city. We are starting now the Grey Box. We have like Montreal's tools teams now that are working on like Houdini tools, and we're chatting with them, see what we could use from the library of tools. There will be several areas of like a higher level of detail, especially around landing pads on rooftops and lookout areas. And these are the places where the players will be able to land. These will eventually connect to the interior spaces that will be built later. And in that sense, Lorville will be ready for those interiors. We started as a team of 2 artists working on Lorville, and now we're 5. And we could even be like more soon. Each artist has slightly different skill sets, and we complete each other. They bring ideas. I let them bring ideas to the table on how to advance what we're doing, make it kick-ass. So that's really important. So I hope you'll like what you see, and we can't wait to show you more. I'm happy about the opportunity of working on this mandate, because it's gonna make such a huge difference.
Thanks, Max. That's looking great. And hopefully you guys can kind of see, even in a white boxing format, we're seeing really good scale reads and understanding about how we can make the cityscape of Lorville probably one of our best yet. And we'll be showing more soon. Thanks for letting us showcase that for you today. Enjoy the rest of the show.
So you've taken the one that had the most egregious no-fly zone, and you're making it so we can just race through the canyons and under the bridges and everything. I want to ask you the same question I asked John Crew. Is this BS, or is this really what we're doing?
No, that's what we're doing, and hopefully you can see in the B-roll that you can actually see it. And you know, no-fly zones, you know, they were there for a reason at the time, but as we grow, as we learn, we find ways to have a better player experience with that regard. And if you see it, how we got things working with New Babbage, then we started thinking, okay, there is a slightly different way. Because ultimately, that no-fly zone there is for a reason. It's not because, oh, you know what would be
Great
really
job.
cool, right?
Friendly
It's
ground
like,
units have moved in on Minbodi.
You know,
You
we
can now
want
spawn there.
to keep the player
Keep up the
experience
good work.
and, you know, the maximum level, so it's there. But for Lorville, as you've seen, you know, we want that experience to be as low as possible, to get that feeling where you can weave in between the structures, weave in between the buildings. And it was always something like, as we progressed through the landing zones, it was always like, one day we'll get back to Lorville. So I'm super happy that we're seeing this now.
And you know, we discussed the art pipeline
for years. We've been doing, like I said, we're here for celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. We've been talking about how games are developed, and we've gone through the pipeline a number of times, from white box to gray box to stuff like that. Where would you say Lorville is? Obviously, what we were just seeing there is not finished.
Final art, we're in the final art phase. So basically, blockout white box is obviously self-explanatory. Interestingly, grey box phase, I'm thinking more like first pass art. So we're always trying to keep the team on the toes. But grey boxing is terminology that we've used on all art disciplines, and it's kind of. But when you're using kits, and you're in grey boxing, you're not actually traditionally grey boxing. So we'll probably just call it like first pass art. But where Lorville is right now, we just passed the grey box review gate a few weeks back, so it's final art now. So we're on the really interesting part where we're doing, really good engine look dev. I mean, you're seeing hints at the potential in engine, but there's still a few hurdles that we need to get over.
Well, that was a look at Lorville Redux. Just on another step on our journey to 4.0. I do want to clear up some of the misconceptions that we're seeing in the chat here. Our journey to 4.0 is
take out this aircraft before
more
it
akin to a
reaches
journey
its
to
target.
4.x. The things that we're showing you today are not a list of this is what's in 4.0. Some of this will be in 4.0, like the planets and moons of Pyro and stuff like this. Other things will be in 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and we'll know which as we get closer to development. Anybody that's followed the project long enough knows that that's how this works. But everything you're seeing on today's show here is everything that's in the process, in the pipeline, being developed now for 4, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and so forth. And before we jump to the next one, I want to shout out a couple of the other promotions that are going on. The digital goodies pack is going out there. You get a Finley plushie. It's not called Finley anymore. It's called Francis. I should look at that beforehand. There's a new jumpsuit that's being given to everybody, and grenade launchers with a cool new skin. That's free to all backers. Just register your account and pick up any one of the pledge packages and whatnot, and that stuff's yours. The Tobii Eye Tracker contest is going on right now. Send us your in-game watch party screenshot for a chance to win. I know there are a number of watch parties going on right now. Shout out to the folks down in San Diego who I saw on Twitter earlier. The JRDF contest, our partners at JR Design and Fabrication create a ship model using only ordinary and random household objects for a chance to win. They make these models that you see here. The wonderful Star Kitten, a dragonfly. Switch to Ian's camera. I'm gonna put this in there like this. Look at that. Oh, it's not in focus. Hold on. Let me get closer to his face. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. No. Take it down. There. Look at my Star Kitten dragonfly in focus because I'm holding it near Ian's face. Isn't that great?
Did you just smell it?
What did it smell like? JRD Fabrications are the makers of these wonderful Star Citizen models. They have an entire array. You can check it out the website, or you can enter the contest for your chance to win a Carrack, a Freelancer, or a Cyclone. And then don't forget the Halloween promotion is going on right now with scary helmets and the pumpkin carving contest. That's always my favorite. I think every single winner we've ever had has been from Texas. I don't know why that is, but they take their pumpkin carving very seriously down there. All right, so we've rambled on enough. Let's throw it to the next presentation. Now, I'm going to set this one up here. I'm going to put this, I'm going to make the audio guy, I was holding it in my hand because I got up. I'm just going to put it there. It's going to be safe. Resource management. What did I want to say about this? Okay. When I backed the project, back in 2013, 2014, before I came here, the thing that excited me most about Star Citizen was the potential for multi-crew gameplay. That positional experience of a captain and a navigator and an engineer and a comms person and run down and put out a fire and something's exploding in the cargo hold. You got to go and fix the fuses and stuff like this. That multi-crew experience has been what drew me to the project, first as a backer until I came in to do this on a spaceship. Did I mention I have a spaceship? I have a spaceship. And if you're like me, on our 10-year journey, I've been wondering when's going to be the day. Where are we at with this stuff? Well, Dan Truffin and Thorsten Lyman are here to talk about the actual working prototypes of the resource management system, the thing that will make true multi-crew gameplay possible, and the last big hurdle to getting those capital ships into the game. So buckle up, eyes forward, and take it away, Dan and Thorsten.
Hi, my name is Dan Truffin. I'm Assistant Director for PU Content, and with Thorsten Lyman here today, we will be talking to you about something we think it will change the way Star Citizen functions and works and how the players will play the game in the future, and that is resource management. Resource management is the underlying system that allows items to produce, consume, and store resources in the game. It is the digital representation of real-life cables, pipes, tanks, batteries, or anything like this that you can imagine.
It's the foundation of the ships, where you have certain resources like fuel and energy powering certain items on the ship, but it's also the system that will lie below any station or any vehicle, anything that you can imagine in our universe that actually requires a certain type of resource.
Resource management is not just a system that helps ships function. It is a thing that's integral to the functionality of the entire universe. It will be the way surface outposts function, underground facilities, space stations, landing zones, everything in Star Citizen will function using resource management.
So we will start with the smaller vehicles, and the gameplay for those smaller vehicles way more interesting than what we have right now. And from that, we can move on to like bigger ships, and finally the capital ships will have a real purpose in the world, and where it will have a real meaning that you have the multiple roles inside those ships.
It will drastically increase the time to kill for all vehicles in Star Citizen, and it will encourage people to disable ships rather than destroy them. Missions like Siege of Horizon will increase in scope and scale up a lot more with the use of resource management, as players will be able to cripple resources, change the way resources are distributed, cut power, cut certain fuel and critical parts in order to progress further in those missions.
We can suddenly scale a lot bigger than what we have right now. And the reasons are that we have more control over the powers of certain platforms there, and we can introduce some interesting gameplay that facilitates these functionalities.
Resource management is going to open up the possibility of player structures, player-owned outposts on planet or stations in space, where the player will have to manage resources, bring in fuel, do repairs. And this will not be something that only caters towards the engineer. This will be something that is valuable for everyone in the world of Star Citizen.
Resource management will finally allow players to build their own bases and their own homesteads and actually keep that loop engaging and fun.
And really, this is the main thing that makes multi-crew gameplay possible. We envision the players taking on roles like engineer, mechanic, tactical officer. And while you have your engineer trying to maintain all the resources functioning and flowing perfectly and all the items in good operation, you will have mechanics running throughout the ship trying to change fuses, repair various things that have broken down. You will have tactical officers moving shields from one side of the ship to another in order to counter whatever incoming damage you have. Obviously, the pilot is going to be doing his job trying to move the ship out of harm's way. The gunners are going to be taking out enemy incoming fighters or other ships. This is how we envision this entire ecosystem just coming together and providing what we...
The side mission has been completed. Good job.
And for all of you out there that are waiting for the Idrises and Javelins and want to use these ships, this is the system that is going to make using those ships possible. So all that said, this is a really important system for Star Citizen, but let's dig into the details and see what exactly this is. Resource management can be broken down into several key elements. power energy resources, life support, item maintenance, relay handling, access control, and gravity. So let's start with power energy and resources. The players can choose to overload items in order to get more efficiency out of them at the risk of burning them out. They can also underload items to save some resources if they don't need the full efficiency of an item. The players will have to pay attention to the balance of resources, power, fuel, coolant, heat generated, in order to maintain a well-oiled and balanced ship. And overall, prioritizing certain items and their resource consumption.
Life support is the most important thing you have to pay attention to in your ships now, since atmosphere is finite in all the spaces that you might discover. And here, the life support system is a key factor. Here, the life support, you have to maintain it, meaning you have to make sure that the consumables inside the life support generator are always there to make sure that it can generate breathable atmosphere for you, or the temperature is actually increased to a human livable factor, so you don't freeze to death, or you are not cooked.
We captured
As
Jalensik.
part of item
Good job.
maintenance, the player
You can rearm
will
there.
be able to control items throughout the ship, turn them on, turn them off. They will be able to remove broken items and replace them with new items, or sometimes dodgy items, depending on their income. It will be able to control which sub-items are installed in those items, either as fuses or subcomponents that give them various bonuses to that specific item. They will be able to run repair gameplay and replace broken fuses when the item stops working or takes enough damage.
Relay handling is
Request rearming.
the actual management part that you, as the engineer on the ship, have to do there. It's basically defining these circuits in the most effective way, especially for bigger ships. So a relay is something that defines which items are connected to each other, and what we want to achieve here is allowing you to create the best possible outcome for your ship.
With access control, we're introducing
Rearming
ship
complete.
roles. The captain will be able to assign certain roles to each of his crewmates, and for example, say one of the player becomes the engineer, which gives them specific access to certain controls, while the person that is the pilot will not have access to those controls. At the same time, a gunner will only have access to a specific gun or all the guns of the ship.
And finally, gravity. So gravity is a concept that you experienced already in every ship. So there's always a ground, there's always a down, there's always an up. And we would like to give you some more control over that.
No boat has fallen. Great
Because
work.
it requires
You
some,
can now
some
spawn
energy,
there.
and if you
Keep
want
up
to
the good
run your
work.
ship more energy efficient, we want you to allow to switch off gravity. Or there might be other use cases where a zero gravity environment is more useful than another one.
So if it wasn't clear by now, the scope of resource management touches pretty much every aspect of life in Star Citizen. So we're doing a lot of talking, but I bet what everyone would like to know is where are we with all of this right now? Currently, we have working in-engine prototypes of the following systems: power, gravity, life support, and the relay network. With a power system, we can overpower and underpower items. We can set the priorities of item producers and consumers inside the ship, and we can set the path of resources inside the ship through the resource relay network.
And with the power system, we already can distribute the base energy and base fuel throughout the ship, so we can make sure that each item actually gets the resources they need. Creating your own resource path is basically defining the routes, or the most efficient routes that the energy or the resources have to take throughout your ship.
We can also demonstrate many aspects of the life support system, including making new players suffocate. Fire explosion.
Nope. 30K. It wouldn't be a Citizen Con without. Wouldn't be a Citizen Con without technical difficulties. Hey, there we go.
Venting and filling rooms with atmosphere. And making players suffocate again. In the last year, we've made tremendous progress with the resource management system, but with a system that is this big and complex, we do not want to rush it. We want to just get it right and get it right from the beginning. So let's talk about what's next for the resource management system.
As you can tell, resource management is a huge endeavor for us.
So like everything else, we'll probably not get everything in the initial release, but this is what we're aiming for. Interactable and accessible items on ships, relay gameplay, changing fuses on the relays, resource balancing, defining control groups that will be accessible through the MFDs, allowing people to create presets for your resource network for each ship, an engineering UI with at least a list or schematic view of your ships, external engineering screen for ships, allowing engineers to define the tuning parameters that can be accessed by the pilot with the press of a button, like loading presets and creating presets. And after the initial release, everything else will fall into place with subsequent patches. We started talking about resource management about 2 years ago. It is pretty much the evolution of what used to be the old pipe system, and this has been an interesting journey, and finally we're starting to see the fruits of our labor, and we're starting to see all the possibilities of gameplay that we can open up to the players in the future. It's exciting to work on something that's so central to the world of Star Citizen and that can impact the gameplay of so many people, irrelevant of what they choose to do in the world of Star Citizen.
Resource management is the most exciting feature that I've ever worked with. It's such a groundbreaking feature that will change the entire game from its core. I think we never had this opportunity to change the game into this direction where we are heading right now, where we will finally have all the tools in place to actually allow meaningful multi-crew gameplay and meaningful decisions for all the players, where every decision counts. This is the stuff that makes me really proud of what we are working on.
Thank you for letting us share our progress with you, and we hope you're happy with all this progress and have a nice CitizenCon.
This Star Citizen Singapore card is really cool. They've just been staring at me playing with it for the last 18 minutes. That was Dan Truppen and Torsten Lyman talking about the resource management system, and joining us to follow up on it is Todd Pappy, John Crew. Guys, this has been a long time coming. I know we still got a ways to go. I don't make it sound like it's it's done, but I mean, how exciting is this? This is
very. This to me brings the interaction that we want in environments, but also in ships. So like you said with the multi-crew stuff, but again, it's not only going to be in ships. We're also putting in environments.
Yeah, this is what's necessary to have player homesteading. One of the components. It's not the only thing.
But it's about just bringing the interaction into the environment. So the AI will react, the player reacts. It's having that interaction level that you don't normally get in games. So that's what we're looking for.
Being able to make, imagine Siege of Orison, but being able to actually assault the platforms and depower the platforms. Missions that can take place inside the landing zones where you cut power to buildings and stuff like this. I mean, this is what really opens the game. Yeah. And John, as they said in the segment, the first place this is going to come is ships. Yeah. So, what's the first version of this look like?
So first version is going to be a lot of what you saw in that video. So we're working through some of the ships now. Hammerhead, Hull, Star Runner, just to prove out a few things, because naturally some ships were built a long time ago. Ones in recent times were built with this sort of level of detail in mind. But yeah, you'll have all these components accessible. You'll be able to get to the relays, do all this management. Something really cool in that video was all the fire and gravity and atmosphere stuff. And like you say, it goes from just being a ship you're on board to like an interactive piece of the puzzle that gives you that multi-crew gameplay. You're not just limited to I'm a pilot, I'm a turret gunner, that's about it. Now engineers and support roles are going to have a huge part to play on ships, because things will go wrong, and if you don't get on top of it quickly, it's going to be a very bad time for all involved.
Yeah, I said before we set it up, this is the aspect of Star Citizen that first drew me in. So it has been, I feel like I've been very patient and waiting and really wanting to see this go. And as I see everybody on EUPU and everybody that's contributing to this thing, it's just super exciting to see it really beginning to evolve and really beginning to be used tangibly in our prototypes and stuff like that. And it's just, I think people know I don't generally hype very often. I'm usually the guy that's sitting here, it's like, don't hype, manage your expectations stuff. And you should still do that. I'm not changing my tune. I'm just, this is the part of the thing that I've been waiting for personally.
Yeah.
I'm excited. All right, so we've ping-ponged from the visuals to the gameplay, the visuals to the gameplay, the visuals to the gameplay. We've only got one more scheduled presentation left. Ship Talk, Talking Ship, our annual celebration of vehicles new coming to the pipeline, vehicles coming straight to flyable, things, something in the middle. That's going to star John Crew and Ben Curtis and Paul Jones, and I'll let them take it away.
Awesome. We captured
Hi
an
everyone,
alpha.
my name's John
Their
Crow.
home
I'm
base
the
is
vehicle
now ours.
director here at Cloud
Rearm
Imperium
here if
Games.
needed.
This year I'm once again joined by Ben Curtis, vehicle art director, and Paul
Excellent
Jones,
work,
concept
everyone.
art director.
The mission was completed in time.
This is our
And now,
yearly ship
get
talk
ready
panel.
for the next mission.
Like previous years,
Please
we'll
join
be
us on
talking
Discord
about
using the
something
link in the
coming soon,
briefing, or search
something
for
being
you in the
announced
browser
today,
for more servers.
something coming
Restart
a
in
bit
1
later,
minute.
and then the fan favorite, the pick a ship or vehicle concept series.